on page 9, we are going to learn how to clear an equation of fractions. Now, you can deal with the fractions, but I find that doing that, people make a lot of mistakes. Plus, learning how to clear an equation of fractions is a skill you're going to need for chapter 4 and 5. So the way we clear an equation of fractions is we find the least common denominator, and we multiply every single term by that common denominator. Now in this case, the lowest common denominator is 8. So I am going to multiply this whole side by 8 and this by 8. So that means I have to distribute to both terms. Now, if you can do this step in your head, that's fine. Some people will want to. Some people will want to see it written. So if I'm multiplying 8 over 1 times 1/2, I can use my superpower and I get 4D. 8 over 1 times 3/8. Again, superpower and cross out. And then 8 times negative 2D is negative 16D. Now I have an equation with no fractions, and I think it looks much simpler to solve than that. Now notice I still multiplied this side by 8 even though there weren't a fraction. There was not a fraction, because the rule says I can multiply the left-hand side by whatever I want as long as I multiply the right. So now I'm going to subtract 4D from both sides. And I get 3 equals negative 20D. Now I'm going to divide both sides not by 3, but by negative 20, because that's what's multiplying the variable, and that's what I have to undo. And my answer is D equals negative 3/20. Okay, so I got rid of the fractions in the equation, but that does not mean my answer is not going to be a fraction. Now, let's look at number 2. Number 2 is 3/4 x plus 1/2 equals 2/3. So again, to clear an equation of fractions, I multiply every single term by the common denominator. Now I don't just look here and say the common denominator is 4. I have to include the 3. So here, for the whole equation, the common denominator would be 12. So I multiply that side by 12 and this side by 12. Here, I'll have to distribute. Here, I can use my superpower and get 8. Again, if you can multiply this without writing all of this out, you may do it in your head. Some people will say 12 times 3 is 36, 36 divided by 4 is 9, and so they'll put 9x, and some people will say 12 times 1/2 is 6, and that's fine. If you can do it in your head, go ahead. Now here, I like to show my work. 3 times 3 is 9, so this is 9x. So remember I had 36 over 4 and got 9x, but I can also show all the work and get 9x. And here, 1 and 6 cancel out. And again, look how simple the equation looks now. This looked really complicated. This looks really simple. So this is a good skill to practice and learn. So now I get 9x equals 2, divide by 9, divide by 9, x equals 2/9. Okay, now number 3, okay, in class, I had everybody do number 3 on their own. So if you want to try to stop the video and do this on your own, go ahead. And so now I am multiplying, I want to multiply every term by the common denominator. 6 times 5 is 30, so that means that's the common denominator. If I put a 30 here and a 30 here and times 30, this becomes 6, this becomes 5, so I get 5x plus 6x equals 330. 11x equals 330. Divide by 11, divide by 11, x equals 30. Okay? Now, Let's look at number 4. This is, we've done problems like this before, but I want to show you that when we actually solved these, what we were doing was getting the common denominator. So the only denominator is 5. So remember, I protect 2x plus 8 because whenever I see an expression in a fraction, I protect it. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the common denominator, which happens to be 5. They cancel out. I get 2x plus 8 equals 30, minus 8 minus 8. 2x equals 22, divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 11. Okay, and now let's look at number 7. Now number 7 says compare how you would solve these two equations. Well, 1/2 times 12n minus 2 equals 5n minus 7, and 4y plus 16 equals 1/3 times 10y minus 4. Now, I'm not actually going to solve these, but I want to point something out. I can do half of 12 in my head and get 6n. I can do half of -2 and get -1. And notice in the first case, by distributing, I was clearing it of fractions because both of these are multiples of 2. Now 10 and -4 are not multiples of 3. I will not clear this by distributing. So in this case, what I should do is I should multiply this side by 3 and this by 3. But now remember, when you multiply grandma, you only multiply grandma. You don't multiply the grandchildren. Grandma will take care of multiplying the grandchildren. So this will be 12y plus 48 equals, and this whole thing went to 1, so 10y minus 4. So I just wanted to show you that as an example of how sometimes you can clear an equation of fractions just by distributing. Okay, now number 8, 1/2 x plus 2/3 equals 3/4. Common denominator is 12. That cancels out. This side becomes 9. If you can do this in your head, 12 times 1/2 is 6. 12 times 2 is 24, divided by 3 is 8. But if you can't do it in your head, you should write it out. Four times 2 is 8, and that becomes 6x equals 9, minus 8 minus 8. 6x equals 1, divide by 6, divide by 6, x equals 1/6. And that's all I'm going to do from page 9.